Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of Artist Stories of Middle Georgia. I'm your host, Victor Rigoli, and I have a wonderful guest with me today on the podcast. I want to welcome Marian McLemore. Marian, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Victor, for having me here today. I
All right.
appreciate it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I want to share with everybody a little bio that you had sent me. Marian McLemore creates vibrant florals and whimsical portraits that celebrate joy and beauty. Her work is inspired by nature, meaningful connections, and a desire to bring warmth and happiness to others. Through rich color and intricate detail, she aims to evoke emotions like calm, nostalgia, and delight. As a Filipino-American woman raised in the Deep South, her art reflects a unique blend of cultural perspectives. And I appreciate you sending that to me. And hopefully you will dive into some of that as well. I'm very
Of course.
interested in your family and how that being Filipino American and also being raised in the Deep South. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So, as I always ask everybody, where does your artist story begin?
Well, it starts probably even before I was born. Both my parents were very artistic, so I feel like I inherited uh, the gene.
Okay.
My dad was able to, draw just about anything he put his mind to, and my mom was a Jill of all trades. I would say she could
Okay. Okay.
sew immaculately, she could bake, she could cook, she did all the things, but she did everything with such perfection. It was, absolutely, imposed upon me at an early age. Creativity was, you know, just another thing, that we did. She was very adamant and having good penmanship at an early age. I remember, her practice, making me practice my penmanship. And so I get lots of compliments even to today that my penmanship is well received.
Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
good.
Thank you, Mama, for that. Thank you, Mama.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Wow. So
Hmm.
both parents side, which is great. So did you discover some artistic ability maybe in kindergarten or just around the house or?
Probably even before kindergarten, as soon as I could pick up a paintbrush, a pencil, crayon, marker, whatever. I was the kid that, didn't necessarily want the latest toy. I wanted, a memo pad, and a
Okay.
pack of crayons, pack of
Crayons. Uh
pencils,
huh. Right.
whatever. And to get a pack of paper, just
Yeah.
pristine paper, I could sit there for days on end, just producing
Yeah.
whatever my imagination could produce.
That's it. Do you still have some of that early artwork?
Unfortunately, I don't.
Okay.
I do have, I think, somewhere squirreled away a yearbook from like my elementary school days where they had taken
Okay.
some of my artwork and put it in the yearbook because I guess I, was one of the better artists at that age and,
Right.
put it in there. So I have that squirreled away somewhere, but
Okay.
I don't really
Okay.
have a whole lot. But
Yeah.
to get back to my parents, my dad was born and raised in rural South Carolina in a little town called Springfield,
Okay.
home of the governor's frog jump.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Wow.
and anyway, grew up on a farm there. He joined the Air Force and got to travel, and he was stationed at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and that's how he met my mother
Okay.
back in the late 60s or yeah, late 60s. And anyway, they got married. He brought her home to South Carolina, and it was a big culture shock for her because
Oh,
she
I
lived
bet
in
it
Manila.
was. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And then going from Manila, a huge metropolitan city, to a rural town with just a few hundred people, definitely culture shock. But she brought,
Right.
some of her culture with her, and I grew up with that. And so that's probably why I like all the bright colors. That's why I
Okay.
paint with all these vibrant
Yeah.
colors, is
Yeah.
because it's probably just ingrained in the genetics
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Philippines is a very colorful place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've never been there. I would love to go, but doing research on it, I found, things that made me a little bit different than the
Right.
average, person. It just seemed that now I get to see where those influences are coming from, even though they might have been subconscious.
Right. Right. That's great. I look forward to sharing some of your work that, we had talked a little bit prior to starting the interview. I've got some slides here, folks, so you'll get to see some of her work. And yes, it is very colorful, and I love that. So, so you did some things, and you talked a little bit about, your yearbook when you were in younger days and that kind of thing. Did you take any? Would you say that you took art in high school and middle school and college? Any formal training in art?
Not at all.
Okay.
Because living and growing up in rural South Carolina, the public school system really didn't have, art, specific art teachers. So,
Right.
but however, I was in the gifted and talented curriculum. And so my teacher, Miss Beverly Stroman at the time, she encouraged creativity. And
Okay.
so we did all kinds of creative things in her class. We did filmmaking. We made books. We did book binding in like fifth grade. She made us write poems. All these things that sort of fed that creativity. And so I
Mm-hmm.
will have to give her some credit for encouraging my experiences in
Right.
art. But mainly I just would go to the library and just devour art history books, biographies on artists, techniques, things like that, all through the years. And just, that was my main way of learning, art. As I got older, and the internet came around, and I just started purchasing, or watching videos
Right.
and taking
Right.
online art classes. And that's where the
Right.
majority of my work has been,
Okay.
but or studying has been, but most of it has just totally been on my own. I really wanted to be an artist, a full-time professional artist when I, graduated high school, went to college, and there's that, that myth or that, theory that, if you're going to be a professional artist, you're going to starve to death. And so,
Right.
growing up in rural South Carolina, I didn't come from much. I was sort of, terrified of having to, eat ramen noodles or cans of SpaghettiOs or bologna sandwiches,
Right.
whatever,
Peanut
for the rest
butter.
of
Right.
my life.
Yeah.
And
Right.
whatever. And I was just like, I want more than that. So
Yeah.
what can I do as a professional? What can I major in that I can get a professional career out of, but maybe can be creative, um, but get that steady paycheck where I don't have to
Right.
rely on, you know, lower quality, food or substance.
Right. Right.
So I ended up majoring in journalism, uh,
Okay.
specifically advertising public relations management. And that allowed me to be creative to a degree, but at least I could get a steady paycheck and, live somewhat comfortably,
Right.
right
Have
outside
those
of
basic
college.
needs taken care of. Right. Food, clothing,
Yes.
shelter. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And so that led me on a completely different path. I've been in the public relations realm for, oh, more than 25 years. After I graduated college, I started work for an advertising agency, which had that, that creative slant to it, and
Right.
started working for uh, electric utilities, electric cooperatives in particular, and managed some electric cooperative advertising accounts in South Carolina. And then through my experience, ended up getting hired locally here in Middle Georgia at Flint Energies
Okay.
as their public relations manager 21 years ago. And
Wow.
so that's how
Congratulations.
I
Yeah.
came to the Middle Georgia area. Yes. So, still creative, but to a lesser degree. It wasn't my full time, profession, but at least I got paid for it and
Right.
was able to, keep myself supplied, with creative endeavors with the Middle Georgia community, and also keeping me funded with art supplies. Had
Right.
that steady paycheck.
Art supplies are not cheap, as we know, and it's
Oh
good
no.
that you have that full-time job and you're able to. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier. It's having a family and raising a family, and it keeps you quite busy. And there's expenses that come from that. And it's funny how that our kids are out of the house. We're starting to do some things to improve the house, and like I mentioned to you earlier, that we are putting in countertops, and the kids are like, how come you're doing all that now? It says, well, we have the money because you're not here anymore. It's like fewer mouths to feed, and clothes and stuff like that. So, but
Mhm.
not that we're just going overboard and splurging or anything. But yeah, it's nice. And like I said earlier when we chatted a little bit, my wife still works, and she's works for public relations here at Georgia Farm Bureau, so I can kind of relate to your experience there. But so, what is your medium of preference? What do you love working with?
Well, it's sort of twofold. I work in acrylics when I paint, but I also do mixed media. Usually, I start
Okay.
off with some sort of collaged background and then paint acrylics on top.
Okay. Okay. Now, how did you get into doing that? What led you to hey, experiment with that and move in that direction?
Um, I probably will have to give some credit to growing up, again in rural South Carolina. My parents divorced when I was 9, and then about 3 years later, my father passed away, and so I went to live with his mother, my paternal grandmother, Flory, and she was a child of the Great Depression. She grew up during that time, and they saved everything,
Right. Right.
everything. And
Exactly.
so, recycled everything, used, old newspapers for, insulating something or packaging something. Um, she was a great storyteller about the family history. My dad's side of the family actually has been in South Carolina probably since the colony days. I mean, we have an annual family reunion each year, and I think last year we celebrated our 138th consecutive family reunion. So there's
Wow.
tons of history, and so
Wow.
just picking up on you know here and there, the recycling part of things and the history part of things. I just find an endearing quality about salvaging, old papers,
Right.
ledgers,
Right.
sheets, hymnals, old letters. You know, I'm probably a little bit of a pack rat, a little bit of a hoarder, because I love these old things, but I want to give those old things new life. And so
Right.
usually that's what I do is pull from all these different sources and then create something unique, hopefully inspirational, and then paint on top of it. So it brings a bit of a new life to it. So that's
Right.
how it
Right.
starts.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've had some other artists on that kind of do that same thing.
Mhm.
And in fact, I had Mary Frances Burt on, and she does a lot of recycling of materials, and she'll shred it all up and put it in kind of like a blender and get it all mushy, and then she uses paint to color it, and then she pours it out on this screen that she has and creates these beautiful pieces of art. And I said, well, where do you get all the paper and materials from? She said, I get stuff in the mail. I've got friends that save paper for me, and we run it through the shredder. And you'd be surprised. I mean, especially now with all these campaign ads coming in the mail, you just don't throw them. You probably don't
Oh,
throw them
yes.
away, and you stick them over there, and you say, I might be able to
No, I do.
recycle that.
No, I do throw those away. Those are a little
Okay.
too new for
Yeah.
my artwork. But
Gotcha.
I mean, a good
Gotcha.
old book.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
tattered and torn, and I'll,
Yeah.
I'll use that and turn it into something.
That's cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked a little bit earlier about art history and some artists. Are there certain artists that just kind of inspired you when you were younger, and they said, "Oh, I just love their work," and
Yes, Claude Monet was probably
yeah,
the
number one
one
for me.
that
Yeah.
I was obsessed with.
Okay.
I, every term paper I had to write, I would probably write it about Claude Monet and his techniques, or, the whole impressionism,
Right.
style that he started, and all of that. I've been very fortunate to see a lot of his works, at several museums over the
That's great.
years
Yeah,
stateside. I
that's
haven't been
awesome.
able
Yeah.
to make it to France yet, but that's on the bucket list. But
Okay.
he was probably the one that really, just captured my heart. Then next would probably be Van Gogh with his texture, the heavy texture he uses in his
Right.
paintings. I love florals. Florals is my jam.
Okay.
So Georgia O'Keeffe.
Mm-hmm.
Is definitely one that another one that I'm, not quite obsessed with, but
Right. But get
very
some
fond of.
inspiration. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I like, other artists, their play on light. I would love to do a better job at portraits. And so I really love, looking at the work of like John Singer Sargent, uh, you know, uh, any of the sort of folks that really play on the light, the clothing, like some of the French, pre impressionist, style, but
Right.
the royal portraits where you can really, feel like you could reach out, touch the silk or
Right.
satin of the dress. I love the look of it. I just, I don't have enough patience to paint like that.
Oh, me either.
I want to get it done. Move on to the next painting.
I'm the same way. I've dabbled with doing portraits. I've taken some classes and workshops and stuff, and that's something I really want to pursue. And it's like anything, you got to devote some time to it and practice and learn some proper technique and color mixing and things of that nature. And because it just takes that in order to get excuse me, to get better at it. And I wouldn't say that an artist ever is perfect at any one thing. I think we're constantly learning and
No.
growing and developing, which is a great thing. But I'm an oil painter, landscape painter, and yeah, that tree doesn't have to look exactly like a tree, and I don't have to paint every leaf on the tree. But if I'm painting the portrait, I better get those eyes the right shape and the right distance apart and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's some challenges there for sure. But yeah, well, good luck with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I figure I will probably have time once I retire, and probably, 5 to 10 years, I'll take the time to really put forth an effort then.
Now, do you find it hard, talking about time, do you find it hard because you've got some children and you're still working to work in time to devote to your artwork? Is that kind of a challenge for you, you see?
It is at some points, but my husband and I, my husband's 5 years older than me, and so he is a little wise on certain things. But whenever the kids were young, he was like, let's, go ahead and train them up to do the chores. And so as they get older, they'll do more chores, and that you'll have more time to rest because you don't need to do everything. And so I'm glad I took his advice. So now, the kids are teenagers now. And so they do a vast majority of the chores, like taking out the trash, cleaning the kitchen, do some cooking. They do the laundry.
That's good.
So I have much more time now than I did when they're a little bit younger. But yeah, if we hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have near as much time as I do now. And I'm very blessed that they can do those things, and I have the time to focus on my art.
Right. Right. How old are they now?
Our son is 17 and a half. You know how
Okay. Yeah.
kids are.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Okay.
then our daughter she just turned 15. So we're in the throes of having a newly permitted driver. So we're,
Ooh. All right.
yeah, a little
Yeah.
touch and go there
Well,
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah. So, still in high school. So, is your son a senior this year?
No, he's a junior. He'll be a
A
senior
junior?
next
Okay.
year.
Okay. 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 All
Yeah.
right.
And he picked up the art gene. He
I was
can
about to ask
draw.
you if any of them, are artistic. So that's
Yes.
good.
Asher, he is very much into anime. He can draw. His drawing skills are so much better than mine. Like,
Really?
he is
Wow. Yeah.
phenomenal. He's really good with the anatomy of it all and shading and stuff. He's very talented in that way. But he just does it as a hobby. I don't think he wants to do it full time like his mom wants to do. But
Right.
and
Right.
then our daughter Caroline, she was much more into this, chorus and theater side of
Right.
things.
Right. Right.
But she's kind of scaled back from that right now, trying to figure out her way uh, through high school. But she leans
Yeah.
more towards the theatrics and the singing more so
Well,
than me.
that's fun. Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah. It's good exposure. Yeah, it'd be good for them. And you never know. I mean, like with my kids, I never pushed the art on them because my story was, gosh, I took art in high school and stuff, and then life and work and all that get in the way. And 40 years later, I pick it back up, and they're grown, and I think a couple of them are still at home, but since that time over the last 6 years, they've all moved out. But yeah, the couple of the boys, they're pretty good at drawing, sketching and
Mhm.
drawing. Especially our middle child, he has ADHD, and so for him to sit down for an hour or so and devote to drawing something is amazing because he used to be just all over the place. So it's like, wow, he sat down
Yes.
and actually created that. So that's, wow, it's amazing. But talented there. But yeah, I hope that maybe they'll kind of stick with it. Maybe I probably wouldn't make a career out of it, but it'd be a
Mhm.
nice little hobby to have,
Oh yeah.
down the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead. Yeah.
no, I was going to say, and also our daughter is very much, experimenting, in the kitchen. So she likes, to bake and to cook. And, I feel
Okay.
like she gets that from my mom, you know,
Okay.
and,
Yeah. Yeah.
inherited that from my mom. So,
Okay. Well, good. That's good. Um, so what is your favorite thing to paint? What is it that I mean, you do mixed media and that kind of thing, but is there something that you kind of lean toward that kind of guides you? It's just, you look at your body of work and you see kind of a common theme or a common thing that you kind of lean
well,
toward?
certainly flowers, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
also birds. And
Birds.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that goes back to uh, growing up, in rural South Carolina, being outdoors a lot, growing up. I was an only child as well. I forgot to mention that. But so
Okay.
spending a lot of time outdoors, using my imagination, also growing up, 70s, 80s,
Mm-hmm.
that time frame, uh, getting a car was freedom. But before then, it was like you wanted to be a bird to fly away or, just soar
Right.
above the clouds, that kind of thing. So I feel like, you know, that's where the birds came into play. Always, looking at, some sort of freedom, just the freedom of not having responsibility, being able to just enjoy flight, enjoy, nature, enjoy the beauty of the world, that kind of thing. And then over time, it's probably become more inspirational in the fact that the birds are almost like little angels.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier, my dad died when I was 12 years old. when I was 12 years old unexpectedly. And so I always saw a cardinal after he passed.
Okay.
Anytime I would be down or something would, I was just feeling down in the dumps or something, I just felt like I needed him or something, a cardinal would show up. And so I guess, just kind of looking at, their sort of spiritual guides, God's messengers being sent. And then I just started noticing more, winged, friends about. And so I just, had this love for them. And then fast forward to 2012, my mother passed away after extended battle with cancer. And I started seeing yellow butterflies after she passed away. So that's like her symbol. So pretty much anything with a wing on it, bird, butterfly, I tend to gravitate toward, and then of course the flowers.
Right.
And then also my mother-in-law passed away, and her particular bird was hummingbirds. And so they tend to appear a lot of times to my husband and his sister. And so it's just, it sort of just plays into this, the storyline that we have some winged guardians or winged friends that just, kind of keep tabs on us.
Yeah.
And lift our spirits when we need them to be.
Yeah. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. You get some inspiration, from that, and know that there's people or spirits or angels watching over us, and there when we need it the most. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Let's show some of your artwork. Okay.
Sure.
I'm going to bring some of this up here, and here we go. We got some birds and hummingbirds and other things there. So in bright colors. So let's talk about these. Share with us a little bit about each one of these pieces, and let's start with the one there on the left.
The one on the left is called Beaujolais Banter. I started with a wine bottle label. The Beaujolais, you can see it in the sort of the center of the background back there. And these two birds are just, hanging out, and they're, like two good friends are going to, be chatting over, a nice glass of wine or whatever. They're in the garden and they're just talking to each other and just, having a good old time. And so that one really shows, my love for collage, the mixed media, all the different backgrounds. There's vintage wallpaper back there. Like I said, the wine label. There's like ledger paper or old notebook paper that was handwritten. Lots of different little bits and pieces. And then, of course, I paint over in the acrylic, the birds and the flowers. And I just like bright pops of color. They make me happy. Mainly because, the beginning, my early years were really tough, having my dad, pass away at such an early age. And it's kind of rough. Those first few decades or whatnot. So I kind of had a rough go, but, God was always there for me. And, you make your happiness if you can, and so I just decided to choose joy instead of the alternative. And so that's where a lot of the bright, punchy colors come from. Well, and then the one on the,
I was just going to say, when I brought them up, they just make you feel good. What I'm saying? When you see them, they just evokes this sense of happiness and peace, and it makes you feel good. Yeah. I love it.
And it kind of goes back to, the Bible verse, about, being the light, God wants you to be the light. And so I think I get to do that through my artwork. And so that's why I paint such happy, joyful colors, and, the world is so, can be so beige and so gray and so neutral. I'm going to show up and show out with a whole bunch of colors. So watch out. Good
deal. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I love the color combination on
the one on the right.
Yeah.
Thank you. This one's a little bit more what I call intuitive painting. I didn't really have a plan. when I started, the other, the one on the left was a little more planned out, but the one on the right was much more intuitive, expressive when I started out. And I started painting the hummingbird for my mother-in-law, and I just couldn't leave well enough alone. I was like, this hummingbird needs to have a little more pizzazz. So I added, some more decorative features to this hummingbird, and people absolutely love this hummingbird. I have created a sticker for it. I've created greeting cards with it, and people just absolutely love this hummingbird. Like, I can't keep the stickers in stock when I, have them
That's a
at a
good problem to
show or
have. You know
whatever.
what? That's a good problem to have. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
I
good.
actually made it into an ornament. It's probably one of the few paintings I probably won't ever sell.
Okay,
Everything else is for sale, but this one is just special to our family, and so
that's
it
good.
hangs in my
Yeah,
studio.
that's good.
And but she's given a lot of joy to a lot of people, and we absolutely want to continue that.
Good. I love it.
Mm. All right, we got two more. The one on the left again is another bird painting. I was trying to experiment with the chinoiserie technique when I was painting this one. Um, and it's just so vibrant. I ended up painting the frame. I have a very ornate frame around the one on the left, and I painted it the same green color, so it's really
Oh,
cool.
okay. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just different birds, trying to experiment with different birds, different shapes, different color combinations. This was probably one of the more uh, plain paintings I have.
Okay.
It's not as elaborate, I think, as some of my other paintings, or it doesn't have as much texture or whatever. But the colors are so bright and cheery, and it still, makes you feel good when you see it.
Yeah. How
And
about this one
then,
on the right there? The girl.
well, that one is more of a self portrait. It has a lot of symbolism in it. It has a lot of my favorite things. In it, it has the lady has flowers in her hair, and then around her collar, and those are peonies, which are my favorite flower.
Okay.
And then you will notice in the center of her dress, like in the torso area, is the symbol of the Philippine sun. So from the Philippine national flag, there's the Philippine sun. So there's that symbolism there, it's giving a little nod to my heritage. The butterfly represents my mother. The swans, I'm just obsessed with swans because
Okay.
of the true love. Usually they
Yeah.
find a lifelong mate, and
Right.
so
Right.
that's very symbolic of my husband and I. And then at the very bottom are water lilies, my little nod to Monet. So
Uh-huh.
it
I was
has
about to say, I thought so. Yeah.
a lot of my favorite things are kind of interspersed throughout that particular painting. And, it's supposed to be a self portrait, but when I painted it, I ended up thinking it looked like the actress Maya Rudolph. She was
Okay.
in Bridesmaids and some other movies. So she was on Saturday Night Live, and so I actually named her Maya. The title of that painting is Maya because I felt like it looked like her more than it did me.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. Tell us
So
about the one on the left there. Yeah.
sure. I believe I don't remember what I named this one. I think it's floppy flowers, but this one I'm trying to get looser in my painting style. I'm trying not to be so tight, so
Gotcha.
precise.
Right. Right.
Um, trying to overcome perfection,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
so hard. But
It
this is
is.
probably
Yeah.
one of the better examples of me getting loose and a little more laid back in my technique. And I really loved how this one turned out. It just, has, some energy to it. It's fairly simple. It's a very simple bouquet of tulips, that have kind of flopped over in this, black and white striped vase. You can feel the energy of the tulips. I don't know. I just, love the color combination.
Mm-hmm.
Probably that's probably one of the most popular, or my go-to color palette is this
Okay.
sort of
Okay.
aqua turquoise color and some sort of pink. I love, an emerald or a Kelly green.
Mm-hmm.
And then, those three just seem to pop or, appear in almost every painting, or some variation of it will appear in a painting. It just is my go-to colors.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of when you talked about this, it reminds me of the Zorn palette, but this is the
Mhm.
Marian palette that we're talking about
Yes.
here. Yeah, your go-to colors. Yeah, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. And then the one on the right is called Vanity Fair, only because of, the little strip of paper at the very bottom. It says Vanity Fair. This is probably, I think it's one of the first of the collage pieces I did, started with birds.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. This one I actually, actually left the collage pieces. I didn't paint over the collage pieces like I did in that very first one that we showed
Mm-hmm.
today.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This one's, true on, the vintage wallpaper, the tissue paper, the torn pages from the book. It's, straight up raw, collage. And then I painted the bird on top and the flowers on top. And, it's very cheerful. It's, it's probably one of my favorite pieces, just because it has all the elements of things that I like, and probably because it was the first in the series of you know birds and blooms on collage backgrounds. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
I
special
like.
piece.
Yeah, I like it. It's. I think it's one of my favorites that you're showing today. Yeah, I like it. Good one. This one on the left's a little different. So.
Yes, I I'm very spiritual, very I tell everybody that I grew up confused, because my dad was Southern Baptist and my mom
Uh-huh.
was Roman Catholic.
Oh wow.
So, do you
Oh,
dance or
okay.
do you not
Yeah.
dance? Do you drink? Do you
Uh-huh.
not drink?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very confusing, but very God centered, Christ
Right.
centered.
Right.
And
Right.
so angels have very much, guided me, through life. And so I did a whole series of angels, but this was the very first one I did that series, and it's called Praise Angel.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I don't know, just really like the serene look on her face, and she's, praising the Lord, and
Right. Right.
stars and everything. And it's just a very, simple portrait, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, it's very, very, near and dear to my heart. A dear friend of mine actually purchased this, and it resides in her home library.
Oh, okay.
And but
Good.
I have made prints of this painting since I sold the original, and just last fall at a holiday market, mistletoe market, for those down in Perry,
Mm-hmm.
um, a couple came into my booth and just gasped when they saw this print
Really?
of the Praise Angel, and they had to come up and tell me the story, and I was just so taken aback by it. And I've always heard that the art will find the correct, the right owner. Like
Right.
every piece
Right.
of art finds the rightful owner. Um, Now, granted, the original has sold, but this print really, made an impression on this couple. They swore it was I had painted their dearly departed friend, recently departed friend, Natalie.
Oh.
They said this looks exactly like our friend Natalie, who just lost her battle to cancer, like, a few months earlier.
Wow.
And they're like, we have to buy this print for her husband, because he will not believe that this is, this painting looks so much like her. They even pulled their phone out, showed me a picture of this sweet lady, and it looked nearly identical to her. It was a little scary,
Yeah.
or whatever. But they bought the print. They ended up buying. I have bookmarks of this print as well, and to give to the gentleman or the couple's daughters. It would be the child, the girl's mom,
Right.
and so they were just completely blown away and just completely touched and just blown away by seeing that print and those bookmarks and everything. So very cool story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, little did you know, and then you have your booth there, and people come up and just like the double take, the gasp, and said, "You will not believe this." And wow, yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, such a neat story. So
it is.
This one on the right, Perry. What's up with Perry?
Yes. Well, we moved to Perry, I think 11 years ago now, and I just absolutely love this town. It's amazing. I love
Perry too. I'm in Warner Robins, but we love going down to Perry. Yeah.
Yes. It's just so quaint, so charming. Anyway, I was goofing around in the studio one day, and had just or recently had saw something on Jasper Johns, a South Carolina artist, and he was big, like I think in the 1960s or whatever, and he did something sort of in the lines of this particular painting, and I was like, well, I'll give it a try. This is when I'm really, into my perfectionist period. There's a lot of straight lines in this one, lettering and all like that. So I was like, I'll try something where I can play off the word Perry. It just came to me. And so it took forever to paint this.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Just the different colors.
Wow. Yeah.
The straight lines, just all the stuff, and I wanted to get the color combinations right. It took a long time, but it's probably one of the most recognizable pieces of my art. A lot of I sell the Perry print, and there's several people, at the city of Perry, their Convention and Visitors Bureau. They have it in their office. Several, folks that live in the Perry area have a version of this. And, it was probably one of my earlier paintings that I've, created, I guess, since COVID is when I really started the fact, I really want to get more into my art. And so I really started my art business in 2023. And so this was probably one of the first paintings I did right after I, started my art business. Now, the print has sold. I've sold, tote bags. I've sold, bookmarks. I've sold all kinds of things with this kind of Perry repeat on it. But the original didn't sell until Dogwood Festival this year.
Oh, okay.
So it took 3 years for that one to sell, but it finally sold.
That's okay.
And it was
finally sold.
It was really neat. This painting stopped a lady in her tracks, and she just was like, "I'm in love with this painting." She asked lots of questions, and answered all her questions. And she's like, I just don't know. It's more than I want to spend, for art.
Right.
And then she walked away, and I was like, that's fine. You sleep on it. It's fine. Right. Here's my business card, that sort of thing. And then I don't know, 20 minutes later, she came back, handing me, a form of payment. and she
Oh,
went
wow.
home with it. And the really cool thing is she's only lived in Perry, I think 18 months is what she told
Really?
me.
Wow. How about
So
that?
she really loves Perry.
Yeah. Well, how
So
big
that's
was that
awesome.
painting? What's the size of that?
I think it was 12 by 16.
Oh, okay. That's pretty,
You know,
yeah,
it
that's a
wasn't,
nice size. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
So,
a good size, to have in the home somewhere. I mean, because a lot of
yeah,
people don't,
like a
they
nice
don't
little
buy.
nook.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't buy the large, maybe 18 by 20 or 30 by 40 size painting because
Hmm.
they really don't have a large enough space to put that in. But they may buy,
Hmm.
a 12 by 16, a 9 by 12, 11 by 14, size. So that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, colorful. Do you
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
before we go on to the next little slide? So it sounds like, do you sell a lot of prints of your work? And do you
I
use a
have.
local company for
Yes.
that, or do you? Yeah. Okay.
Some of the stuff I have printed my own. I
Okay.
don't have the patience necessarily for for that. So I'm still, I try out different printers. I haven't
Yeah.
necessarily found maybe the one that
Right.
I really love just yet. But uh, it's a lot of trial and error.
It
I've
is.
used
Yeah.
Vista print for like my smaller, like 5 by 7 prints. But when
Right.
you start getting to 8 by 10, you need a little more professional, I think, help. And so haven't found, like the right paper
Yeah.
weight
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
finishes just yet.
Right.
But I'm going to get there.
Okay.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
trial and error, but I'll get
Yeah.
there one day.
I may want to talk to you offline a little bit about that too, because
Sure.
that's some of the things I like to do is some print stuff.
Hmm.
So, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is something that happened fairly recently, and I saw it on social media, and I thought, oh my gosh, look at there. And
Yes.
so, talk about this. When did this happen, and how did you get involved in it, and
Oh,
where's this
sure.
at?
Okay. So the city of Warner Robins posted on their social media, I think last summer sometime, about this Adopt a Box program that they were looking for local artists to submit artwork for this new program. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds cool. In my day job at Flint, I helped start a program or create a program called Rural Mural. And that's where Flint goes into rural communities and gives a grant to sponsor murals in these rural communities to help boost their, tourism, help
Right.
boost their economic, growth there, sort of give a new lease on life to some of
Mm-hmm.
these, sort of rundown downtown areas
Right.
because of the brain drain. All the youth have moved out. They've moved to the metropolitan areas. The downtowns are a little more depressed. They
Right.
needed something to get folks to come back downtown. And so we started the Rural Mural Program in 2019 with our first mural in Oglethorpe down in Macon County.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so since then, we have installed 15 murals across Flint's service territory. We have, I think they're across 10 counties now, and we're still growing. We're going to be giving out 3 more in the next few days. And so I'm very much an advocate about public art. You know, especially in our rural areas, because the people that live in rural areas can't, or don't have the ability to visit museums or galleries, and art shouldn't be locked up away from the public. And
Right.
so
Right.
uh, anyway, I'm very much an advocate of public art. So when the city of Warner Robins announced this Adopt a Box program, I was like, here's a way, truly, as an artist, I can participate. And so there was a specific template that you had to follow, but you would take your artwork, um, make it fit within a certain template. And there are some
Right.
other requirements. It can't be too dark, like it can't be more than 20% dark,
Mm-hmm.
because the communications boxes, the traffic communications boxes that they're wrapping are heat sensitive. So it has to be light
Yeah,
and bright
gotcha.
to keep that equipment cool and operational. And so way back June, July of 25, I submitted artwork for these utility boxes and really didn't hear anything, until, probably about a month or so ago when they said, oh, they're ready, we're going to,
Okay.
come this date and,
Thanks for
get
letting
your
me
picture
know.
taken, come take your picture with the mayor. So it was a
Uh-huh.
bit of a surprise. I mean, I knew, I do think they sent me an email saying that, 2 of my designs have been chosen for the first phase and that they would be in touch. And then when they were in touch, it was like, oh, can you meet, in a couple of weeks and have your picture, made with the mayor at your utility box. So, it was such an amazing process, and the fact that, the artwork, these are based on original paintings, but to see them, the original artwork may have been an 8 by 10,
Right,
very,
right.
very small. And then they're light, they're huge. I mean,
These
looking
are
at the
like
picture, you
4 foot,
see,
yeah, 4 foot by
yeah,
7 or 7.5,
yeah,
based
yeah,
off
they're
the people
huge.
in the picture, average of 5.5 to 5'7", it towers over them. So, or you guys. So,
Exactly.
yeah, it's like,
And
whoa.
so when they called and said, okay, well, we're going to see you this day to take the picture, so um, you're driving down Davis, and Davis Drive in Warner Robins is a little depressed
Yes, yeah, yeah.
area. And so you're driving down, you just see, asphalt, you see, utility poles, you see, you know, old buildings, things like that. And then all of a sudden you sort of like come over this hill and bam, you see
All right.
this bright pop of color. And
That'll
you're
wake you
like,
up in the
what in the
morning when
world
you
is
see
that?
that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
And
it's,
you
it's great.
submitted you submitted artwork for it and everything. You were chosen. You actually painted that, correct? And put that on
No,
there, or did
actually, they took,
somebody else painted it?
no, they
How did that
actually
work?
took my original artwork. I sent them a JPEG or Photoshop document, and they actually had it created into like a car wrap, like a
Oh,
vinyl
okay,
wrap.
gotcha,
They
gotcha.
printed that out, and then they had
Yeah,
somebody install the wrap. Actually, they're supposed to last longer than if they were to be
yeah,
painted,
okay, yeah,
and they're easier to install, quicker to install.
right.
And so the one actually in the picture on the right is based off of one of my birds and blooms
Mm-hmm.
collage paintings, called To Be an Angel, and it's probably one of my favorite pieces that I have done. Just has my has my color palette in there,
Right there, you go. Yeah.
but it's just it's really bright and cheery, very lighthearted. Those are Japanese magnolia blooms on there, and a couple of goldfinches,
Uh huh.
and that one just really pops like
Yeah, it
it.
does.
Like if you drive down Davis Drive near Tabor, there's a Texaco station at that corner, but you can see this utility box long before you see the Texaco station, in
How
my
about that?
opinion.
That's yeah, yeah.
And then the other one is located at Davis Drive and Scott Boulevard, which is a little closer down towards the Walmart end of
Okay.
Davis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I actually scanned the hummingbird from my earlier painting that we talked about.
Uh huh.
I had used the scan of that hummingbird, and then I merged it with another scan from another painting of a bluebird and put those together digitally in a file. And it's called Dancing and Singing into Spring. and made that particular artwork, which is wrapped around that utility box. And that one was a little more technical for me to do, because I'm not the best Adobe Photoshop person or anything like that, but I was able to, Frankenstein that one into existence. And that one looks the best if you're going south on Davis towards the Walmart, and you get stopped at that intersection and you look to the left, you'll see the hummingbird in all her glory at that intersection. And that one looks really good as well. And it was just a great program. I think they're doing a wonderful job in revitalizing the downtown district in Warner Robins. And this is one of the ways that they are doing that, is implementing public art against something that's very utilitarian and making it look pretty. And these will be, colorful in the, dead of winter when there's no color at all. There's gray skies. You'll see these. And this is just the first phase. I think they did 8 boxes this first phase, and they plan on doing 50 in total. So they're going to be I think they're going to be all over the city by the end of the project.
That's fabulous. Yeah. So we can look for more art to pop up in certain areas of Warner Robins. Yeah.
Yes. And I think they are still looking. I'm not sure, but I do believe they're still looking for art to put on those utility boxes. So any local artists are interested.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, for sure. Yeah. Because, it helps to know that you don't actually have to paint the box. You submit your artwork. If it gets approved, then they'll create the wrap and actually do the installation. But it's your artwork that's being used, and I love that. That allows so many more artists, I think, to participate, because not all artists are good at, maybe you're right, taking like an 8x10 and blowing it up and making sure you get the proportions and colors and everything right. But they take that out of the equation. So, all that's taken care of for you, which is wonderful, So, I love that concept. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, these are just 2 of the final photos of you hard at work in studios or a studio.
Well, the one on the left is my home studio. I have the bonus room upstairs at my home. And that's my little getaway. Yes, definitely sanctuary. I come up here and paint, do my devotions, all that stuff, take naps, that sort of thing. But this is, my husband and son were really, disappointed that I took the bonus room from them and their man cave dreams. But,
gotta have
if mom ain't happy,
come on. Yeah.
If mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So it's my little sanctuary. I have I love to collect things. I love a lot of 50s, 60s sort of kitschy, collectibles all kind of scattered around, and they bring me joy. And so and a lot of those pieces actually have, my 3 favorite colors, the emerald green, the sort of the aqua blue, and the pink. So it's just sort of, it just permeates up here. So, then the photo on the right was actually at a workshop that I went to in Asheville, North Carolina, several years ago, where I met with an artist called Kathy Nichols, and she does a lot of the, mixed media collage, work as well. And so I was able to learn a few techniques from her. It was pretty awesome.
Great. Well, I appreciate you, as we walk through that and you're able to talk a little bit more about your art and everything, just to get to know a little bit more about you as an artist and your art and the colors that you use, and understanding, I know now what a Marian color palette is. So, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does the future hold for you? Do you have any
Oh my
work that
goodness.
you're showing? You got any plans for any shows coming up or anything like that you're going to participate in? So what's the future hold?
Oh, well, I'm, a member of the Fine Arts Society of Middle Georgia. So I try to participate in every exhibit, every show that they have, like, especially the one in August that's coming up, that they were planning, the big one.
Right.
And then I participate in the Georgia Arts Association, their monthly shows. I'm a member of the 1823 Guild up in
Up at
Forsyth.
Forsyth.
And
Hmm.
so just, trying to get out there, for right now. You know, ultimately, when I retire from Flint, I do plan on, making this full time.
Right.
And so I'll probably do more art shows and things like that
Okay.
after.
Right.
But right now I'm working on a collection, um, a little departure from the birds and the flowers, but I'm going to be building on using some of the techniques that I do in the birds and blooms paintings, but just a little different. I'm going to try to do some portraits this time. So we'll see. Hopefully,
Okay.
I'll have those ready in a couple months and then be able to show that. And then when I do have, I do have a website
Okay.
where I post most everything, which is marianmclemoreart.com. But occasionally I will have things down in Massey Gordon, the little boutique, little shop down in downtown Perry.
Right.
And then I also do, some festivals here or there, some other shows and stuff. Normally I do Mistletoe Market in the fall.
Okay.
At the fairgrounds. I also do the Dogwood Festival each year. And then occasionally I may do, vintage market days or Christmas Made in the South, just depending on,
Right.
if my full-time work and my
Right.
personal,
Right.
schedules can align. So,
Right.
but yes.
Good. Good. And I'll include what I call the show notes or description, your website information, social media, that kind of thing, so people can reach out, see more of your artwork, hopefully purchase some of your artwork. And as we talked before, that's one of the reasons I do this, is one, to share with everybody that's out there who you are, but also how they can purchase some of your artwork and find out more about who you are as an artist and your art. Now, I've got some random rapid fire questions for you today.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. What is your favorite holiday and why?
Christmas.
All right.
I love Christmas.
Okay.
If I'm not painting, I am decorating. I absolutely love Christmas. I'm one of those that start decorating November 1st.
Okay.
At 12:01 a.m.
Tell me the color of your wrapping paper.
Well,
is it the Marian palette?
Yes.
Color
Yeah.
palette?
Well, actually, the
Got some
majority
reds
of
and
our
greens in there?
well, we decorate almost every room in the house, so I do have some traditionals stuck there for, the traditionalists in my family, which is pretty much everybody but me. But the majority of Christmas is the pink and aqua colors. I have a very large collection of nutcrackers that laid on my mantle. So yeah, that's a big deal. And that's one of the things that I'm known for at Mistletoe Market, is my nutcracker paintings. They're the hot item every Christmas the last few years.
That's it. You giving me ideas of things I could paint too. So I'm trying to branch out a little bit. I'm trying to do more still lifes and not so much, the marsh or the landscapes and stuff, but more still lifes and stuff. And I starting a little project. I works on black, because we did something at the Fine Arts Society of Middle Georgia a couple of months ago, and I had a couple of things there, and so. Kicking around some ideas of some things I can do with Works on Blacks, and then I've got a couple other projects going on. I made a list. I've got 9 different things I'm working on at one time, but that I'm involved in, and one of them is the podcast and everything. So yeah, extremely busy. But anyway, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
That's a good one. Probably teleportation, so I could travel more,
Yeah. No. Time
go wherever
travel.
I want to
That's
go.
me. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to. Yeah. Well, before I move off of that and ask you the next question, there was something that came up that I wanted to ask you earlier. Have you been to Atlanta to see some of the Claude Monet or the Vincent Van Gogh exhibits as far as the immersion? I think that's what they call it.
Yeah. Well, I have not been to the one in Atlanta, but
Okay.
when we were on vacation a few years back, we were up in Louisville and they had the Van Gogh exhibit in Louisville. And I was all about that.
Oh
I
yeah.
was It
Yeah.
was well worth the money. It was
Yeah.
fabulous. I highly recommend doing it at least once.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I went to the Van Gogh one, as well as the Claude Monet one in Atlanta. And
Mhm.
I have a son from a previous marriage, and he lives up in Atlanta. And he took me up there and said, "I'm going to take you to the Van Gogh one." And I was in that big room that they had, and they were playing everything, and it was all over, and they had the big bag chairs on the floor. I was just laying in one and just taking it all in. And I think he was
I
sitting over
know.
there. I think he was sitting over there says, "Okay, we need to go," kind of thing. But,
Just
I
leave
was
me here.
totally, yeah, I was totally immersed in that. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But yeah, I think the
It's
Van Gogh
fabulous.
one was my favorite. I've seen the Claude Monet one, but the Van Gogh one is definitely. All right. So I probably know the answer to this already, but I'm going to ask it. It's one of those four questions. What is your favorite color?
Sure. Pink.
Pink.
I'm a pink
Okay.
person.
Okay.
But if you're asking for a specific paint color, it's luminous rose by Holbein.
Oh,
That's
okay. Wow. She's got the name down, folks. Yeah. You
yeah,
too
that's my
can
favorite.
purchase that color. Yeah. All right. All right. Last question for you is describe your
Sure.
dreams art studio. What would your dream art studio look like and be?
Oh my goodness. It would probably be on the first level with some French doors, that open up to like an English cottage garden of some type, um, or
Getting a
near
little
the beach.
Claude Monet vibe there, maybe?
Yes,
Uh huh.
or near
Okay.
or near the beach. I'm a beach
Uh,
girl. I love the
yeah,
beach.
I'm a beach person too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So either one, I'd be
Okay,
happy with either one
okay.
for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, I've really enjoyed having you on the podcast today, and it's just been great talking to you to get to know you a little bit better. We had met at an event there at Rigby's Conference Center that the Fine Arts Society of Middle Georgia hosted, an art show, and met you there and saw some of your work. And we talked a little bit about being on the podcast. And here we are finally, we've been able to do
Yes.
it. And I think I had to postpone it a few weeks ago because I was ill. And, I'm all better now, thank goodness. And, but it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And,
Been
I'm,
wonderful. Thank you,
yeah.
Victor. I
And
appreciate it so
oh
much.
yeah, anytime. And I'd like to maybe catch up with you 6 months, 8 months down the road. Just say, hey, where are you at? What's going on? Let's get back together,
Sure.
just so people know that hey, this is how things are going. Maybe sometime, toward the end of the year or whatever. So enough time's gone by to where maybe you talked about doing a new body of work. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that and things that are
Sure.
going on. So and
That
two,
sounds wonderful.
yeah, and if you've got a special show that's coming up, and maybe you're doing something at a gallery or whatever, and you'd like to talk about it, please reach out to me and let me know. I'd love to to sit down and have a little chat with you and talk a little bit about that and help promote that for you as well. So anyway,
Okay, of
thank you so
course.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
All right. And thanks
Wonderful.
everybody
Thank
for,
you, Victor.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been great. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you in another episode of Artist Stories of Middle Georgia. Please like and subscribe to the channel, especially on YouTube. Follow us and become a friend with us on Facebook. And guys, we'll catch you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Take care, Marian. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Artist Stories of Middle Georgia. We really appreciate our audience and would love to hear about other artist stories you'd like for us to share. Please email us or leave a comment. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Please like and subscribe.